not gonna say it, somebody should. Let's talk about two-time, let's talk about bum wine, yeah. Asking the questions that nobody could. Like, where are the bone thugs and are they in harmony? Do you're a helpful snowman.
Well, hey everybody, this is me broadcasting live from Denver after night one of Metallica. After night one of Metallica, and then also night of terrible sleep and another day. It's like 4:50 in the afternoon the day after. Because the thing is, so Metallica is playing two shows, one Friday and one Sunday. But what they're doing is a completely different set list each night. So my friend Alec is like the world's biggest Metallica fan. And, I like Metallica as well. And so he's like, I'm going to both nights. Do you want to go? And I was like, yeah, I'm going. But what that means is, and so the way it's scheduled, one of the shows is Friday night and one is Sunday night, which I'm like, Metallica, I don't know what those guys are. They're probably like pushing 60. And like, I get it. I would do the same thing. I would be, I saw Alice Cooper open for Rob Zombie, which I thought was a little weird because I was like, Alice Cooper, I feel, is a bigger act than Rob Zombie, but maybe not. Who knows? However, once I saw what happened, I was like, oh, this makes a ton of sense because Alice Cooper is, I think, in his 70s, and it's like, okay, so Alice Cooper is going to hit the stage at 6, he's done by 7, and he could probably be back. He could be at his hotel or on his bus or whatever and in bed at 8:30 and golf the next morning, which is, I think, his thing, and rinse, repeat, and it's like living the sweet life. And I was like, actually, I think opening for Rob Zombie is probably better for him at this juncture than it would be to, be the sole act or the headliner. And then it's like, well, you got to play for like 2 hours. You get off stage at like 11. Where this is like, you play half as long and you get off stage 3 hours earlier. He could probably be asleep by the time the show ends every night. So I was like, that's kind of genius. So I think what Metallica is doing is like, listen, we're a little older, a little longer. The tooths are a little longer. And what we're going to do is play a show, then take a break, then play another show. I think that's what they're doing here. I have a concert shirt that shows the dates. I don't know. I want to see, is that how it is in every city? But I think it is. Let's see if there's a break. Yeah. Toronto, Ontario, 24-26. Nashville, May 1st and 3rd. Columbus, Ohio, May 9th and May 11th. Yeah. Anywhere they're playing 2 dates, there's a day in between. And, I guess when you're Metallica, you can do that, right? So I don't know what percent. I'm sure there's a percent that's only going to one and not the other. But I don't know what that percent is. But we're going to both. And I was like, this is going to be a bit of a test for me as a 41-year-old man. Sorry, I'm going to try and mess up algorithms that try and know what I am as a 57-year-old man. I'm just going to, from now on, you're witnessing with your ears Helpful Snowman history, because I'm going to just say different ages all the time so that no one can, guess my passwords. I was listening to a John Green audiobook today, and he was talking about how being very online, one of the challenges is like, he's like, I've written a lot of stuff, I've done vlogs with my brother back and forth like every week or something for like decades. And he's like, I've talked about everything in my life that could potentially be a like password question. He's like, I talked about my childhood pets. I've talked about my mom's maiden name. I talked about the school I went to and my childhood friends and all this stuff. Anyway, so I'm going to just try and mess up the algorithms in the future. Because that's what I believe is the future of privacy, is not keeping information from people, but creating conflicting information so that maybe things will just get it wrong. I feel like that's the best option. So I checked in. So here's what I decided. Because I'm, 29, about to hit 30, and, feeling it in my bones a little more these days. If I have more than 2 drinks, it definitely fucks up my sleep and I don't feel great the next day. And even 2 drinks, it's like, okay, here's the weird thing about drinking at this stage in my life. I drink very rarely. I've never really been like go home and have a beer guy. Only for a brief period, because I was drinking a beer in the bathtub while reading a book. And I was on a tear of doing that for a short time. So that was like my whatever. But anymore, it's like, I don't know, like the amount of good a beer makes me feel isn't outweighed by the amount of crappy a beer makes me feel. So I'm not as apt to even go for a beer. A beer. So I decided to stay in a hotel because I was like, you know what? Instead of driving down, parking, going to the show, driving home, getting home at an ungodly hour, and then repeating the same thing 2 nights later, I'm just going to stay in a hotel in Denver. I'll have a little Denver weekend. And then, I'll be able to get to bed much earlier and so on and so forth. Well, we'll get to how that worked out for me. But that's where I am right now. I'm in a hotel. And what I did was I ended up staying at a hotel where I was like, this is so clever, because I can get the train from downtown out to the airport. And I can just stay there. Many, as airports do, there are a bunch of hotels out by the airport. All the hotels in remote distance of the concert, the prices were like insane. They were like double what they normally are. And, I'm sure that's because they know. I'm sure the hotels are keyed into when there's like a sold out huge concert at a stadium. And they're like, well, let's jack up the price for those nights. It's such an unfair world we live in, because it's like, how come you can just do that? You know what I mean? Doesn't the room cost an amount? I've been hearing about how, like Walmart and Kroger are going to do that with groceries, which is like definitely techno-futuristic dystopia, which is like, oh, when it's really hot out, we can charge more for popsicles or ice cream. And it's like, oh, cool, yeah, that's great. I'm sure the shareholders really like that, and everyone else thinks it's monstrous. Which, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know this has always been a thing, right? Like, I bet you pencils and crayons cost more in August than they do in October. You know what I mean? If I'm Target, I'm like, we could round the price up 5 cents per pencil and no one will really know. And that's a little extra profit. Everyone's going to be buying fucking pencils in August. But I don't know. There's something about being able to do it, not just predicting and like seasonally, but in the moment, like that day. Or I'm sure they can just set it up so that it's like, okay, when if the temperature is over 90, these products automatically go up to these prices. Or they put another 20% on it or something. I don't know. It's just crazy. It's crazy to me because I feel like grocery stores, that was like the one business that made a shitload of money in the pandemic. You know what I mean? Because it was like, well, they can't close them down. So they had to keep, and everyone was still working at the grocery store, but I don't think they were getting any extra money or anything. I just was in that same John Green book, I learned that the current supermarket model is like a newer, relatively new thing. The guy who invented the grocery store Piggly Wiggly, he, before that, the way it would work is you'd go to the store, tell the guy what you want. He would like measure everything out and weigh it and then charge you, the correct amount. But there wasn't a lot of transparency in the pricing. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you knew a can of beans cost this much and this cost that much. You know what I mean? It was like, well, you just kind of had to go and it cost what it cost. And so this guy came up with the idea of like, I just put everything on the shelf and then I put a price on it. It's like a fixed price. And so you know how much it is before you go to buy it. And he thought that would be more convenient. And he was also like, it'll be cheaper. We'll pass on the savings to you, the customer, because we won't need as much staff. We don't need basically a personal shopper for each person, which is a pretty good idea, I guess. I like it in terms of that would be my living nightmare if that's how you still had to shop for groceries. Just having to chat with someone that long and having them know all the things I'm buying. Also, I feel like the supermarket model is much better for impulse buy. You know what I mean? What would they do? They'd be like, hey, while you're at it, how about a copy of Us magazine? They've got a very unflattering picture of a celebrity right now. Eh? Look who they got this picture of and oldened up. And they always put a headline that's like, so-and-so dying? And it's like either someone who's definitely not dying or someone who it's like, I mean, he's an 87-year-old man. Doesn't seem like he's in great health. It wouldn't shock me. So I wonder if they do that, just take a shot in the dark every so often. Because they're like, well, we'll be right, 1 out of every 10 times. If we're playing the odds, if we hired an actuary to be like, who's likely to be going soon? And we said like, well, yeah, we said they were dying. We didn't say when. We're all dying in a way. I feel like that would be the court case, where someone was trying to be like, they said I was dying and that hurt my reputation or whatever. And it's like, aren't we all dying though? And a judge is sitting up there just rubbing his bald head like, Jesus Christ, why did I pick this career? This is not what I thought I'd be doing. I thought I'd be dispensing justice. Okay, so I get to the hotel. Pretty, just right on time. Of course, there was road work happening because that always happens in the summer. I'm sure there are technical reasons that it happens in the summer, but I don't know that I buy that there are technical reasons it always happens in the summer when I need to use that particular road. You know what I mean? This is probably one of maybe 5 times I would use this road in the summer. And it's like, it was one-way traffic, which is the worst kind of road work where you just have to wait for a line of cars to go each way. But I get to the hotel and I did notice there was a Miller moth in the lobby. A moth? I just call them moths. I don't know why they're Miller moths, but I saw one flying around, but I didn't think anything of it. It's like, whatever. Yeah, they've got huge doors that are opening all the time at this airport adjacent hotel. And so they have a sign by the elevator and it says, Miller moths are among us. Miller moths are currently migrating through the area. They start out in Kansas and Nebraska and migrate to the Rocky Mountains. And it's got a picture of them, of one of them. which already I was like, why are you giving us, I don't, yeah, okay. This is a fact, I guess. Maybe a lot of people who are not from the area at all stay at this hotel. You know what I mean? People from maybe like another country or something who've never seen a Miller moth. I'm like, I'm very familiar with this phenomenon, and like I saw one in the lobby, and it did not find that jarring. But if I was in another country and I saw a beetle or a grasshopper or something, or even a small bird, I don't know that I'd be alarmed. You know what I mean? The sign continues. You will likely encounter these harmless, bolded, butterfly-like insects. It's like, already we're doing PR work. Hey, they're pretty much like butterflies in a lot of ways, which maybe they are. I don't know. People don't seem to react to them the same way as a butterfly. I know that's probably not entomology, based. Like, we don't categorize insects based on how people react to them, but nevertheless, this is pushing it. In the public areas of the hotel and possible in your room. If they are bothersome to you, please let us know and we will remove them from your room. If they bother you. Which, if there was a moth in my room, it would bother me. I would probably try and capture it and release it outside. But it is funny that it's like, if it's bothersome to you, it's like, you should just say, like, if there is one in your room and you need assistance, let us know. We're happy to help. You know what I mean? Something like that. You don't have to say, like, well, if you're the kind of person who's bothered by that, I get. Bolded again. Did you know that grizzly bears love munching on Miller moths? I did not know that. I find that almost hard to believe, just because how much caloric value could a bear get out of a moth? And like, how many could they get in one go? You know what I mean? I don't know. Miller moths contribute to a large part of their protein consumption this time of year. Miller moths also play a role as pollinators. So anyway, hilarious sign. Doing a lot of PR work for the Miller moths. Big Miller moth is really standing up for their boys here. I just thought it was great because it's like, we have moths in the hotel. What should we do? And maybe this is like, someone who's like, I want to make a leap into marketing. Let me give it a shot. And they're like, all right, Miller moths really aren't that bad. Think about it this way, asshole. So on and so forth. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was very funny that there's all this PR work happening for moths, because it's like, well, ultimately what they're doing is changing the story, right? The story is there are moths in this hotel. What they're changing it to is, here are some Miller moth facts. And they happen to be here, which is a convenient excuse for us to tell you some information about them. And then I guess I walk away being like, I didn't know that, which is kind of true, because I had no idea that bears eat them and that they are a significant portion of the protein. And like, please don't quote me on that, because I don't know that that's true. But I guess probably someone was just like, Miller moth facts. Whoever's doing this, it's very obvious what they're doing, in my opinion, but they're not doing a bad job. They're doing what they can with the material provided, right? It's like, make people okay with moths being in the hotel. And it's like, I don't know that I can do that. And they're like, well, try. How about you try? Anyway, I check into the hotel and I immediately left to take the train downtown, and caught up with friends who are coming to see the Metallica show. So my two buddies who are seeing the show are driving down each night because they have families, so I think they can't. I think their wives are like, I don't think you're leaving me alone with the children for a weekend to go watch your old men play guitars. And it's like, it's not unfair. But so I met up with them, and they had to park at the stadium basically. And I'll give you like a 5 count to guess how much the parking cost for the duration of the show. $100. I am not kidding. And this wasn't like some awesome premier parking or something. I mean, it was like close to the stadium, but it wasn't. Lots of people were parking there. $100? And they're saying like I was rolling up in the car, and they were like, I could tell I was sure it was going to be a lot. And I was like, 50 is my max. And then as we got closer, I was like, 75 is my max. Like it can't possibly be more than 75. And then the guy was like, $100. And he was like, all right, here you go. That is just insane. I've always thought that the way to like, people go back in time and Back to the Future, and it's like, oh, I did sports betting and made a ton of money, or I would do stock market stuff. And I'm like, I think the sleeper thing to do is to buy parking lots in cities that haven't quite developed yet but are going to, because that's like a constant stream of income with an extremely low amount of work put into it. You know what I'm saying? Like the ratio of work in to money out is awesome. So it cost $100 to park there. And so we were going inside and we were kind of discussing our plans as far as like, okay, we're old. We're all in our late to mid 30s to early 60s. And so what's our plan? You know what I mean? Because it's not going to be, when we saw Metallica and we were in our early 20s, the three of us went to see Metallica on the Death Magnetic tour. And it was like we were all annihilated, including from a bottle of schnapps that one of the guys snuck in his crotch, which we were both, me and one of the other guys were like, dude, don't sneak that in, because we were like freaked out if he got caught, we wouldn't, they wouldn't let us in or something. But he got it in, and then cut to halfway through the show, and we kept being like, we got any more of that booze? Anyway, we were like annihilated. We get picked up by a friend, and we're in her car, and she's just like, guys, you are all screaming right now. Which, yeah. I wore my earplugs last night. I have my ear easers. So they're earplugs that are just supposed to like tone it down, not turn the sound completely muffled, but tone it down a bit. I think they do muffle it some, but overall, it's much better than the alternative, which is like just my ears are blown out for like 3 days. So, anyway, we get to the show. The opener was a band called Ice Nine Kills that's kind of like a horror movie themed songs band, which, I don't love, but I don't hate, but my buddy Alec really likes them. It is fun to go to a concert with someone, even if you're not like real into the band, who is like, this is like a top 3 band for me to see. I don't know, there's something enjoyable about that for sure. And then it was Limp Bizkit, which that's when we stood in the merchandise line, which took probably an hour. But I still caught a significant portion of Limp Bizkit's set. Limp Bizkit is not good. I mean, like, I don't understand. I was trying to describe it while we were watching them, and I was like, it's like if you took elements of music, it's like the worst kind of music that is composed of elements of music that I do usually like. You know what I mean? I was like, it's like designed to take components I like and turn them into something terrible. Because I was like, if you were trying to design music I absolutely hate, it would be like experimental jazz, right? And it's just like, that just doesn't speak to me. I don't understand it. I get no joy from it. But Limp Bizkit is like, I don't know, they have like rock guitar riffs and stuff like that, and I don't know, like dumbly aggressive songs, and like, but I sort of think Limp Bizkit knows who they are. You know what I mean? I think they know they're stupid, but I don't know. Uh, so anyway, yeah, and like we watched them, and I was like, well, I almost enjoyed like one song, but this is probably because. So here was my plan. I was like, guys, I'm on a 4 drink limit because I was like, I think 4 drinks, I will be pleasantly buzzed, but I'm not gonna be like mega hungover tomorrow. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna hate my life tomorrow. But what I sort of didn't think about, I guess, or maybe willfully ignored, setting the limit at 4 is like, all right, cool. Except if you buy tall boys that are 25 ounces, that should count as 2 in terms of, what I was trying to do. But like the only beers we saw were 25 ounces. I was victimized by the lack of normal sized beers. But so I had 2 of those and was like, well, that's 4. And then my friends bought me 2 more drinks, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just have them. So really, 4 turned into 7. Not double what I was gonna have, but not double. Closer to double than to what I originally intended to have. And it was closer to the double number than it was to the intended number. But anyway, Metallica was great. There's something to be said for like, there are bands that they've just been doing it for so long and they're so good at it. Sometimes it's terrible, right? Like you watch, I think Axl Rose has sounded pretty terrible for a long time. Vince Neil has sounded bad for a long time. But like the aforementioned Alice Cooper was great. And I was like, I don't know, he's still got it. You know what I mean? And like he still sounds like Alice Cooper. That was cool. And Metallica is definitely in that realm. To me, like I don't, I'm not like a Metallica expert, but I don't feel like their sound has diminished really. Like I know a lot of people would see the Rolling Stones or something, and I think there was a long period where people would see them, and they were like, "Listen, they don't sound as good as they used to, but it's the Rolling Stones, so I'm gonna go." But yeah, I would see Metallica anytime. And like even their new songs, which I don't know, were enjoyable enough. And they played a good mix. So here's the thing. Because they play 2 completely different sets, they were definitely playing some deeper cuts. And of course they played a couple of the big hits. And then I assume they'll play a couple of the other big hits tomorrow. But they played some songs they don't normally play in concert, so that was pretty cool. Um, anyway, so we saw the show, we rocked out like old dads. Oh god, and we're like walking around, and it was so funny because one of the guys is it's not funny that he's got a gluten allergy, so he's like, I can't eat anything with gluten because I'll be like gassy as hell, and just ruin everyone's time, mine included. And so we had to find some food in the stadium that was gluten free, which was surprisingly difficult. I was like, there's gonna be something, and there wasn't much. But he was like, well, I can eat sourdough. I don't know how exactly that works, but sourdough is fine. He's like, which is great because I love sourdough. And I was like on the verge of saying like, lately I've really been eating a lot of sourdough. I think it's so good for like sandwiches or like with eggs for breakfast or whatever. And I was like, my 22-year-old self would hate what I've become. Just like we're a bunch of fucking old dads walking around the stadium looking for a gluten-free option, talking about how much we love sourdough. You know what I mean? It was like this magical moment. I went to a different concert with Alec before, and before the show he gets out this baggie, and it's like, oh, that's all his pills and stuff. And it's like, okay, these are Pepsid, these are Tums. Now this is what's the pink stuff? Pink stuff. I can't remember. What is the pink stuff that you take for your tummy? And they show the graphic of it coating your stomach, and you're like, I understand. This graphic is great. Like, I feel that's happening. Pink stuff, stomach. Pepto-Bismol. These are the Pepto-Bismol pills. He's like, that's the serious shit. So he had his baggie of drugs, but that's what it was. You know, we're old men. So the show ends, and it's like chaos trying to get out. It took so long to get out of the stadium. Like, the exits were a nightmare. And like, I ended up leaving out of a completely different exit. It's weird how they have the stadium set up, because you can get in on different sides, but you can't walk all the way around the stadium. You have to sort of go up some stairs, and then you can walk a tight ring around the stadium, but you can't walk down the stairs and then walk around, because they've got it blocked off for some reason. So the result is, like, everybody is just penned in, and I got to a part where I was just standing in a bunch of people, and we were at a complete standstill. And, you know, and they had one guy there managing the crowd, making sure no one walked on the grass, to, you know, cut the system, I guess. You know, it's like, nobody should walk on this grass. And I was like, why the fuck are we worried about this grass? You know what I mean? Like, who cares? If you have grass, and then you have to hire a guy to stand with a flashlight and tell people not to walk on it, I mean, what the fuck? You know what I mean? So I ended up taking a very roundabout way to the train station, and I got on the train and discovered that the train schedule is incorrect. And so the train I got on was the last train, which was a half hour before I thought the last train was going to be there, because if I'd known, I would have been hustling a lot harder. I wasn't like mega close to missing it, but I wasn't not close to missing it. And like, I don't know how I would have gotten to my hotel. My hotel, here's why I'm a genius and an idiot. It's like, the hotel is cheaper because it's not downtown, but it's completely inaccessible by foot. You know what I mean? I could not walk here. I did like a Google Maps to walk here just to see what it would say, and it was like 6 hours, because it was like, well, you basically would have to go completely out and around. It's like 6 hours. I might as well just wait to sober up, buy a car, and drive home or something. But anyway, like, I get on this train, and it's just sitting at the station for a while, and then it finally departs and everything. And I think I got back to my hotel at probably 1:30 in the morning, which is hilarious because my friends, well, at first I was like, oh, I'm going to beat them home by a million, because they texted me about an hour after the show let out, and they're like, we are still in the parking lot. And I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. But then they got home at like 1 in the morning, and I was like, I think you guys were home before I was. So my genius plan at staying at a hotel really didn't pay off very much. Didn't really work out the way I had hoped. But, you know, here I am, rocking the hotel like a hurricane. So anyway, then I had a shitty night's sleep because I drank, quote, 4, end quote, drinks. And then took a long walk today, which I kind of didn't want to do, but then was like, you should. Because I'm like, it'll help tucker you out for tonight so you can go to bed at a normal time. And also, probably good. You know, just try and walk off some of the, sweat it out a little. That was the other thing. It's like 95 degrees today. And it's Pride, which that wasn't a problem. That actually made it more interesting. There were more people out walking around, I guess. I don't know where the parade was, but I was never near it. Or it was over by the time I got downtown. But it feels like whenever Pride is always the hottest time of the year or something. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I tried to walk it off, sweat it out. I ate some ramen. I figured that's like a good hungover meal. But I'm going to maintain my snobbery of, oh, this isn't as good as the ramen in Japan. But it's true. It's true, guys. I'm sorry. It's sad but true, as Metallica would say. One of the songs they played. So there you go. My hopes for tomorrow. I want them to play Hit the Lights and The Memory Remains. Those are my big two that I'm like, yeah, it would be awesome to hear those. Maybe Of Wolf and Man would be cool. I Disappear would be great. And lots of great options. But, I'm sure it'll be fine, whatever happens. So there you go. That's night one of Metallica. Listen to me yawning through it. I'm back in my hotel. It's like 5:30, and I'm going to go get some pizza down the road and just bring it back here and put it in the little fridge that is extremely loud. But at least there is a fridge. That's something. And call it a night. I'm going to FaceTime Poonmaster Flex. Oh, guys, this is the sad thing. I used to be so, like, lone wolfy. And now I'm like, I miss Poonmaster Flex. You know what I mean? I miss having our Saturday mornings together. And I'm like, this is the first weekend we've been apart in like 2 years. That we haven't, been in the same house. Like, I mean, and when I say in 2 years, I mean every night for the last 2 years we've been in the same house. And like, this is the first, because she was at a conference like 2 years ago. And I'm like, what did I do? I threw away a weekend with my lovely wife. I'm like, you've become such a boring dad. You're like talking about sourdough, and you become that guy who's like, oh, isn't my wife awesome? And it's like, I hated that guy. I've become the thing I hate. So I'm like, what are you trying to do? Set me up with your wife, Jim Gaffigan? Always spending a chapter in your book talking about how often Jeannie is. Great. I'm glad you like her. She's your wife, so I would hope you do like her. But, doesn't do much for me. But now here I am. Well, I'm not trying to convince any of you to like Poonmaster Flex. She's mine. She's my property. We're married. That's how I understand this works. So fuck off. Find your own wife. I know the supply is dwindling out there, but do your best. If it can happen for me, it can happen for you. You know what I mean? I always try to motivate people to be like, if there's ever something you think you can't do, or you're worried you can't do, find some huge idiot who does it. We watched a Flat Earth documentary, and there's a guy who makes these amazing woodworked Flat Earth maps that like rotate, and they have like embedded lights, and he hand blows glass domes for them. And my woodworking skills are not great. They're not even good. But when you watch that guy and you're like, he's amazing. And then you're like, he also thinks the earth is flat. So like, if he could do it, I could probably do it on a passable level, right? If like the biggest idiot can do it, I can do it. That's like, whenever I think about that these days, I'm always thinking about politics. But let's not get political. But you know what I mean. If this bunch of idiots can be presidents, surely, then it's not that hard. All right. We'll see you next time. All right, everybody. As promised, post night 2 of Metallica report. I'm cleaning up my hotel room. Well, not cleaning. Packing away my things. It's 9 a.m. This hotel has a very generous noon checkout, which is interesting. I don't know if it's because it's like close to the hotel, so they're like, we could do a different time, or I don't know why. Well, I did not go nearly crazy last night on the beers. I had like 2 beers. 2.25. Because I had one tall boy and then one regular light boy. So that seems like 2.25-ish, as opposed to way too much last time. But I did do something very metal that I'm not proud of. But also, interestingly, I didn't do it because I was drunk. Yesterday, trashed my hotel room a little. Allow me to explain. Now, I'm not like a, fuck yeah, metal up your ass, trash the hotel. That's not me. But I did. I usually try and be very conscientious about the hotel and try to do things like not use too many glasses, or, I can use the same coffee cup for the shitty little coffee machine every morning, stuff like that. Because I'm like, whatever. And I usually don't have the maid come in. I put the sign on the door because I think I can use the same towel for like 3 nights. That would be less than I use my towels at home. I just don't usually need a refreshing of the room. I even will often, if I eat food in the room, take the garbage out with me one morning, the next morning, so the room doesn't smell fucked up. Which is, let's be real, that's selfish. That's because I'm like, I gotta stay here for a few more days, so I don't want the room to smell fucked up. Anyway, here's what happened. It's a 2-stage problem. First stage, so I walked to a diner for breakfast and ate breakfast and walked back, and I'm peeing, and the hotel bathroom, of course, has a mirror that extends across the entire bathroom. Because people who design hotel rooms think, people are going to want to see themselves pissing. You know what I mean? They're going to want to know what that looks like when they're standing and peeing. So, I'm standing and peeing and looking, and it's weird, right? Because it's like, I don't know. There must be something about it that's easier to do this way. Or the size of the mirror, maybe it's just that the bathrooms in hotels are small. I don't know. But anyway, that happened. So I'm standing here peeing, and I look up, and I see out of the corner of my eye a large insect crawling on my neck. And it was like an instant reaction. Because, insects don't bother me that much, but I think... Sorry, I'm putting in a contact lens. When you see it crawling on your neck like that, it's just an instant, I kind of brushed it away. And then realized that, so I kind of brushed it, flicked it, and I turned really quick. And, the bug went flying into the shower. And then I realized that when I turned after flicking the bug, I was just peeing on the floor. Completely unintentionally. I wasn't like, take this hotel. It was a lot. It was a lot of pee for, this wasn't like a, Pete wasn't paying attention and didn't aim great and got some pee on the rim or whatever. This was a little puddle on the floor. Very embarrassing. So I cleaned it up with it. I had to make a decision too, because I was like, well, what's the worst? What's the worst thing I can do? And what's the best thing I could do? And I was like, I think the best thing I could do is probably clean it up with a towel. And here's the thing, I'm not like an expert. I don't know exactly how hotel, housekeeping works, but I'm pretty sure they probably grab all the towels and then throw them all in like a huge laundry with just like a shitload of bleach. So I was like, it's probably better for me to clean up the pee with this, right? And then the towel will get thrown in with a bunch of bleach and stuff. And, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's the best way to do it. But I'm not completely sure, but I'm pretty sure. So that's what I did. And so there was a towel with some pee on it, and I got it wet and I tried to like wash it off a little bit, but I don't know. You know what I mean? You're like, I don't know how effective that is. And then it gets worse. Because then, we're walking back to the car from the concert. So I did a little research, phone a friend action, and discovered that we could park, instead of paying $100 to park, we could park on street parking for $9. And, after the show, probably had to walk 15 minutes or something, which was like well worth it. I felt like, to quote a Metallica song, the hero of the day. But we were walking through a park, and I stepped in dog shit, like a giant dog shit. Couldn't see it or anything in the moment, but you could just feel it. And you're like, well, that was either a mud pile that happened, and it's been like 100 degrees the last 2 days with no rain, or that was dog shit. And it was definitely the dog shit one. So, and it's one of my life annoyances is stepping in dog shit or just seeing dog shit, because I'm like, there's some things you have to do. And like, dog owners, I feel sometimes get testy when they're like, oh, why are you giving me a hard time about bringing my dog into the hardware store or whatever? You know what I mean? Or like, they have them on an infinite 100-foot leash, extendable leash, and they're like, why are you approaching us with caution? My dog's not going to do anything to you. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know your dog. And like, it's probably, can you see why it's smart for me to approach unknown dogs as though they may do me harm? And then, hey, if I'm pleasantly proven wrong, that's great. If the dog doesn't take a lunge at me. But I was running the other day by a apartment complex, and there was a lady out with her dog, and he just came running at me. And I mean, he was on a leash and didn't get anywhere close to me, but he was definitely untethered. He would have been coming for me. And the lady was like, oh, don't worry, he's nice. And I'm like, I don't think that's true. I was like, I'm sorry, but I don't think I'm exaggerating to say I don't think your dog is nice, or it wasn't going to be nice to me. That certainly didn't look like the prelude to being nice to me, the Honda Prelude. So anyway, stepped in dog shit. And I mean, it was a lot. Like, most of the bottom of my shoe was coated in it. It was up on the side. And so when I got back to my hotel, I had scraped off my shoe walking enough that I wasn't going to track shit into the hotel. But I took it off immediately in the door, and then was like, well, I need to do something about this. So I decided to clean the shoe off. And my first attempt to do this, I don't know why, I was like, I think the easiest thing would just be to do it in the shower. Probably because I was maximum water flow, whatever. And I was like, I think it's worse to try and do it in the sink, because, that's where people are going to have their toothbrush and touch their face, and you know what I mean? It was that seems worse, right? It was just a weird once again, like the pee, where it's just like, I'm not totally sure what's worse here. I know there is a worse, but I'm not sure which one. So I tried to clean it off in the shower, but the problem was the shower's water pressure was decent, and it just like splashed water everywhere, and there were flecks of dog shit like all over the place in the shower, and I was like, oh god damn it. Also, the shower has like a sticky rubber mat, not sticky, suction cuppy on the bottom. It has suction cups, rubber mat, because it is incredibly slippery. I mean, it is crazy how slippery this shower is. And I'm like, how is this allowed? Like this should not be permitted to be manufactured. So I tried to do it in the shower, and I got most of it, and then I had to transfer it to the sink. And I have in a bag that I bring a regular toothbrush and an electric toothbrush. And the regular toothbrush is God knows how old at this point, so I was like, I'll use that to clean the shit out. So I clean the shit out, threw the toothbrush in the garbage, and then I have to like clean up the shower, and I tried to clean up the sink as best I could. Hotels, I know you probably don't want to put like bleach wipes in the room because that like suggests it's not clean, and or because you don't want people to feel like they're obligated to clean, but might be to your advantage. So I've got this soaked shoe, so then I stuck it up towards the vent for the air conditioning. I did a smart thing, because I was like, if I stick it up there, I could definitely see forgetting it tomorrow. So I put its companion shoe in front of the door, so that I couldn't possibly leave without, stepping over it. And that would prompt me to certainly remember the other shoe. So anyway, I'm going to see if it's actually dry at all. I would not call it dry. I don't know that it's saturated anymore. But dry would probably be, dry is a strong term that we don't always love to use. But yeah, so like, I don't know, I feel weird because I accidentally sort of trashed a hotel room in a way I didn't mean to, introducing some biohazards. But also, one was because a bug was on me, and it was like, a shock moment that resulted in a mess, and I'm like, I don't know that I could have done anything different. And the other one was like, I don't know, I feel like maybe not my fault. Because I'm like, well, if you let your dog shit on the ground, maybe someday you stay in a hotel where someone's cleaned that dog shit off in the shower. I mean, I hope they clean. I did leave a cash tip for the maid, which wasn't much, but is much more than I normally leave, because I normally leave nothing. Not because I don't believe in tipping maids or something, but because I just never remember. I don't know why. It's like, I just don't think about it. And then, you read like, oh yeah, the etiquette is like, I don't know, $10 a night or something. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, I just never remember. So I did tip the housekeeper. I remembered this time because there was a card on the dresser thing that's like, you can do it with a QR code. But I was like, fuck that. Like, I'm going to just put cash on this thing, because before I'd done this, I was planning to tip. And so I was like, wouldn't it be better to just have cash that they could take? And it's like, I worked in a restaurant. I know how this goes. You're like, everybody's like talking about taxing tips or not, which is dumb, because I'm just like, we're just talking about taxing the amount of tips, not, how that's not a livable wage or whatever. But, yeah, it's like, well, maybe you claim it, maybe you don't. You know what I mean? Maybe no one knows that was left here. So I know that doesn't totally make up for it, but I'm trying. So on one hand, I did trash a hotel room, But on the other hand, I wouldn't say had strong follow through on, fucking A, metal. It wasn't that kind of trashing of a hotel room. It was, well, ooh, a bug on me was the first part, and part 2 was, whoops, I stepped in dog shit because, I parked really far away from the venue because I didn't want to pay $100. One was thrift, one was fear. Those were the 2 motivators for trashing my hotel room. But, yeah. So I saw Metallica a second time. I'll spare you the details. It's not that exciting. Not a whole lot happened. It was much more crowded, though. I don't know why. Maybe because it was Sunday instead of a Friday, so people were there early. And, people knew this time, okay, it's kind of a shit show, the parking and the walking and the merchandise line last night was so long. It was all the way from, the bottom floor up to the top of the stadium, going along the ramps, and I was like, this is crazy. How many, a busy store can't have this many customers in a day, right? A busy clothing store, Walmart probably doesn't sell that many t-shirts in a day, and they certainly aren't selling them for $45 a piece. I mean, nuts. I don't know. But, I'm not complaining. Whatever. I feel like merch, concert merch, something a lot of people complain about, but I'm always like, A, you could buy band merch for certainly a Metallica, certainly quite cheap, online or whatever. B, I'm just not that worried about something that falls firmly in the not a necessity camp. You know what I mean? Concert merch certainly is not required. It certainly isn't I'll perish if I don't have it. It's well, no, you'll be fine. You know what I mean? It won't be as immediately obvious that you went to a concert one time to strangers who probably don't really care. So, as necessities go. So there you have it. Pete's Metallic Adventure. 2 nights live in Denver. This is what it means to be in your question mark age, in your late 20s. Late 20s to mid 50s. And to go to a concert 2 nights in one weekend. But I did it. I'm alive. I'm going home now. And my shoe, I dare say, may be cleaner than when I began. You know what I mean? I'm of an age or of an experience level where I know how to clean a goddamn shoe.
You're not gonna say
All right.
it.
We'll see you next time.
Somebody should. Let's talk about 2 time. Let's talk about bum wine, yeah. Asking the questions that nobody could. Where are the bone dogs and are they in Hollywood?